So I watched Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker yesterday. I thought I'd do another quick review, but before I went to watch it I recorded a prediction. So before I even talk about what I thought about it or give any indication, I thought I'd play that for you now. If you don't want to watch that, skip to this timestamp in the video and that's when my actual discussion will begin. So over to Past Nathan. Hello, Past Nathan here. I thought I'd make some predictions as I'm watching Rise of Skywalker in a few hours, hopefully. So first prediction, do I think it's going to be good? I think I'm going to like it. I don't know if that means it's going to be good. I am excited to see it, but at the same time the reviews and all this kind of negative press I'm seeing, I'm kind of feeling a bit influenced in some way, but I'm hoping I will like it. Although the scenes released that I have seen are just diabolical, some really bad kind of improv comedy, which obviously Star Wars was always a bit funny, but never like an SNL sketch. Do you know what I mean? So maybe that's what will slip it up a bit. In terms of character predictions, I think probably either Rey or Kylo Ren will die. I think probably more Rey, and then Kylo Ren has to go to the good, perhaps. Or maybe also another prediction is that they both just ignore the Jedi and the Sith. And I think in some of the canon of Star Wars Rebels or something similar, Clone Wars, those Jedis that exist called Greys, which are neither Jedi or Sith, and kind of live in the border of good and evil or whatever. So I think maybe that's what they'll become, or maybe that's what Kylo Ren will become. But yeah, I don't really have a lot of predictions, to be honest, because I haven't really watched a lot of the trailers, mainly because I thought they were a bit shit, so I'm trying to avoid them. But I do think the Emperor will have a little bit of a smaller part than maybe suggested, but we'll see about that. I think he might reveal something to do with Anakin's parents, that the Sith created him or something like that. Just because I think I've been rewatching all the Star Wars films in order, just to get ready for this, to get excited for this film, and that's a really big question in the prequels, which I think is just forgotten about. Obviously the prequels aren't really explicitly amazing or well thought of in Star Wars conversations, but I do think they're important in terms of information we are fed, which may aid films like this. So I think that might be a reveal. But I feel like I do have a better knowledge of Star Wars recently because I've rewatched these films. And maybe if you want me to do a ranking of each film, Empire's the best film, just to ruin that video. But yeah, I think I'll give a prediction of a star rating. Actually, that might make a bit of sense. I think it'll be a 3.5 to a 4. Quite shocked if it's lower than a 3 though. That lower than a 3 to me is a bad film. So hopefully they can put it off. Yeah, I'm not really sure what to make of the film, to be honest. I'm sure Luke will come back in a Force ghost kind of way as well. But other than that, I really don't have many predictions. So yeah, sorry that was a bit not a lot of predictions, but I didn't really know what to think going into it. Hope you enjoy the rest of the video. Whatever thoughts and opinions I have now from watching it would be interesting to see. And yeah, back to you, future Nathan. So on to the proper review. Thank you, Past Nathan, for your shit predictions. I don't think I got a lot right, mainly because I wasn't expecting it. If you realise I didn't talk about Rey's parentage at all, I thought that was kind of done with The Last Jedi. Is that what it's called? Yeah, The Last Jedi. I thought the whole sentiment of that film is that anyone can use the Force, and Rey isn't from a bloodline or something similar. Yet she still is powerful, and that was the whole kind of sentiment. And I thought that storyline was done with, but That's kind of the problem with this, with Rise of Skywalker, is that it kind of disregards The Last Jedi. It's quite bitter towards it, actually. There's a scene where Luke catches the lightsaber as Rey throws it, almost like a very non-subtle, direct nod at Rian Johnson. And that kind of leads me on to nicely to what I thought of the last two films. Now, The Force Awakens, I think it's a good film. I think it's kind of a really safe film, and that's probably why it's got the least kind of, or it's the least divisive. There's nothing really stood out for me in that film. But The Last Jedi I really liked. I think it's got a good understanding of what Star Wars should be. Visually looks really nice. And I think it all made sense for Luke and the character. I don't agree with people who say it doesn't. And I thought it was a good film. And I thought it had a lot of potential to kind of lead on to a third. But what J.J. Abrams and the people at Disney have done is kind of disregard that film entirely and made two films rather than making it a trilogy, or so it looks anyway. And the issue with that is that characters aren't consistent, it's overly quite uninteresting, and it doesn't really captivate me for very long, and that's how I felt. Mainly because as well, visually, Star Wars films, you've got to expect that there's going to be something nice visually, be it the red salt plains in The Last Jedi, or a nice sunset or something similar. But there isn't really anything in this Star Wars. It just feels bland and the same. I never once felt that I was kind of immersed, or I didn't even notice really a J.J. Abrams lens flare either. Speaking of that, I'll go on to the characters actually. The characters I just felt are just largely quite irritating in these trilogies. Star Wars has always been quite, I want to say, serious. The characters always took it quite seriously. And these characters have just some really grating banter and uninteresting dialogue most of the time. I couldn't really care when there's a big space battle at the end. It's just all spectacle. There's no real tension there at all because I just don't care for the characters. I'll give you an example, a film like Endgame, which I didn't really like, but even that last battle scene, it made me feel something. This film I just felt nothing. Absolutely nothing. But that's not to say I didn't like it. I thought Kylo Ren's arc was kind of tied up nicely, and it all made sense, kind of. If you take a lot of the Last Jedi and kind of retcon it, it does make sense. But that's not really what I want. I want a solid trilogy, a solid kind of send off. And now onto the big reveal. Rey is a Palpatine, which kind of, for me, when that was revealed, I was just like, okay, whatever. I don't really care for Rey's character particularly. I care a lot more in these trilogies for Kylo Ren and Baby Skywalker than I did for Rey. She's kind of quite an annoying character, to be honest. I just didn't really react in a way maybe that they expected. It wasn't a massive unveiling of the mystery box. It was more of a kind of, this film never felt like it earned the Emperor or Rey being Palpatine. It just kind of threw it in there as a second thought. And this film, you can tell, I could tell anyway, that it's not connected. It was never thought that, they never set up the first episode of this trilogy and thought this is what's going to happen at the end. It kind of just happened, and that's the kind of issue that they've had with how Disney have set this up and how they got Rian Johnson in, and he obviously had different ideas to J.J. Abrams, and now J.J. Abrams is trying to bring it back, and it just really is quite a mess, really. You never felt that the Emperor was a real threat, really, and neither did you care, to be honest, because of this flip-flopping between two different stories, two different setups. It had set up in the last film that essentially that Kylo Ren and Rey were gonna branch off from the Jedi and the Sith, like I said in my prediction, kind of, that they'd become greys and side on neither side. And this film kind of set up instantly that Kylo Ren was back on the Sith, and he was the supreme leader now, and he only had one thing, and that was to search for power, which kind of goes against what his character was doing. Forgive me if I'm forgetting, because I didn't rewatch this trilogy just because I couldn't find it anywhere. But I rewatched the prequels and the originals, and then Kylo Ren joins the Jedi's, and they're both Jedi's, which kind of doesn't really make sense to what they had set up. But like I say, they kind of truly disregard The Last Jedi. And it's a real shame, really, because that film is quite good, and I think all the character decisions that were made in that film were strong. That's not to say it's a fantastic film. It's not by any stretch. There's some awful scenes and awful dialogue, which is similar to this film. I think it's the strongest out of the trilogy, though. Talk a little bit about the plot. Now, the plot in itself isn't particularly adventurous. It's just they're searching for a gizmo, and a lot of the time each story isn't fueled by the characters doing something really. It's fueled by a bit of luck, like they fall through the sinking sands and end up in the exact cave where they need to be, or Finn gets a feeling and the Force tells him to go somewhere, and that's how they get to the next point in the story. And that kind of fell short for me, especially with character inconsistencies. Finn is the biggest culprit for this. Like for example, in one of the scenes where they're in the speeders, this scene was actually the release scene I was talking about in my predictions. I'd already seen this scene. Finn says something like they can fly now, which is the worst line in the whole film, because he is a stormtrooper. He was a stormtrooper, and they kind of forget that, and then they suddenly remember. They set up this clan of people who were stormtroopers, and now Finn suddenly remembers that he was a stormtrooper. Kind of inconsistencies like that. It could be a useful character trait that, or maybe more of a internal battle, but it isn't really. He's kind of restricted to a one-note character who's kind of moaning or wondering where Rey is all the time. Same with all the characters, really. They're all focused on Rey. They all orbit Rey. All their character decisions, all their character motivations. And that's kind of why this falls flat. The original trilogy was so unique because it had all these characters that we were all interested in. And this film kind of literally shits on these characters. For example, when Chewie's fake death, or when C-3PO gets his mind wiped, they're kind of a bit of disrespect there for original characters, which I wasn't really a fan of, but what can you do? This is a new trilogy, and it was quite clear to me that they wanted to be separate from that, but at the same time they're really nostalgia baiting everyone with characters like Han Solo comes back, the Emperor's in this film. It just really is nostalgia bait at the end of the day, and that's kind of what I felt like with The Force Awakens as well, is that it was reeling people in based on nostalgia, and Rian Johnson kind of got rid of that nostalgia bait, and kind of obviously had Yoda in it, and Luke Skywalker was the main goodie or whatever, but it was never similar really. It wasn't really similar to Empire Strikes Back, whereas this film just gone is very similar to The Return of the Jedi, and the first Force Awakens is similar in that sense to The New Hope. It's not necessarily a problem, but it does feel like we're kind of getting tricked as an audience member into seeing similarities and believing that this film should be good because of the similarities, and that's strictly not true. You can hate on the prequels as much as you want. At least they have some kind of sense of, I want to say style, but they don't really, but there are some good set pieces, some good, albeit green screen, but good replacement shots which look nice. Whereas this film, it just feels like there is nothing going on. It feels very samey. It feels like nothing's really been pushed too hard. They haven't really thought outside the box. They played it very safe. But that being said, It may sound like I hate it completely, which completely isn't true. There was stuff I liked about it. So I'll go onto my Letterboxd score now. I gave it a 3 out of 5, which is pretty quite generous actually. If you can hear how I'm talking about it, is that I've kind of reflected on it since it's been yesterday I watched it, and now I've kind of thought about it, kind of festered my feelings. But all in all, I can understand the kind of thoughts and feelings, why someone would like this and why someone wouldn't like it. But if you ever watched it, let me know what you thought of it. Be interesting to get a discussion in the comments. And hopefully I can continue to upload some high quality videos. Not saying that this one's particularly high quality, but it's a lot higher quality than the previous video, which is a bit of a fake episode, a fake upload really. I just wanted to put something on the channel. But yeah, thank you for watching. I'll see you later. Goodbye.